Hello and welcome to Newsweek Wales. I'm Alex Hartley. Here's what's coming up on the show. A boost to Wales's vaccine rollout. Over 50s are set to receive a third dose and young teens can have their first. We find out what it means to them. Also ahead. 10 years on, yet the pain remains, remembering the Glacier mining disaster and the 4 men who lost their lives.
It's like yesterday. You can't believe it. It's like yesterday it happened.
And painting a picture of the pandemic, how one man's lockdown anxiety inspired his artwork. Well, it has begun. The COVID booster campaign is now underway here in Wales. Frontline NHS workers and staff working in all health and social care settings will be first to be offered their third jabs, along with adults over the age of 50. And the winter rollout will also offer 12 to 15-year-olds 1 dose of the Pfizer vaccine. Medical experts say they hope it will reduce disruptions for schools. And our reporter, Charanpreet Kara, has been finding out what it means for children and their families.
I'd take it personally. I think it's a welcome change. What about you, Mally?
Well, it's been confirmed.
These discussions will soon become decisions.
To keep in Wales and to keep everyone safe.
12 to 15-year-olds in Wales are next to be offered COVID vaccines. Here at a Pant school in Pontyclun, many pupils have already made up their minds.
I think it'll give us freedom. That's the most important thing. We've had many lockdowns. We've been stuck inside this whole time. I think it's important that we get out.
People always say that your youth should be cherished and enjoyed, and unfortunately the past 18 months, 2 years, that's really not been on the cards for people my age.
This has been a relief as it's a long time coming and everyone's excited for this.
A long time coming after the JCVI, which advises politicians about vaccines, said the health benefits for 12 to 15-year-olds were too marginal to recommend them. On the flip side, it's the potential side effects that are worrying Paige.
We don't know the long-term effects, and particularly as a young person, I'm a bit apprehensive of the risks that we may have some future complications.
Minister, some young people are worried about the side effects of this vaccine. I know the JCVI has said that those are rare, but are we prioritising the rest of society over the young people?
The risks that the JCVI did see, they were finely balanced risks. I think that what has happened is that the chief medical officers have looked at the broader impacts on those children. And I think loss of schooling is a significant impact for children as well. And of course, this is not a compulsory vaccination. It will be up to parents and the children themselves.
But how do young people feel about their parents having a say in whether they get jabbed?
It should mainly be the children's view, as it is their body and their way of thinking to get the vaccine.
It's my choice to do what I think is best for myself and for the future of other people in my position as well.
Tell that to the parents we spoke to, who seemed to think the decision would be in their hands.
Till they stop paying for themselves, it's all my decision. They'll definitely be having the vaccine, whether they're kind of a little bit hesitant or not.
It's just a given, really. Just get on with it.
In reality, although schools will send parents consent letters, there's already a process in place if they disagree.
If a child can show that they're able, in legal terms, competent to make that decision, then they can disagree and make their own mind up. However, I think it's really important for us to understand that that doesn't happen very often. Usually parents and children discuss anything medical, including vaccinations, together and come to the same conclusion.
A conclusion families will have to reach quickly before the rollout begins next week.
Now, this week marked 10 years since a mining disaster that saw 4 men lose their lives. An explosion at the Glacier Colliery released gallons of water into a shaft where men were working. A massive rescue operation was sadly unsuccessful. A decade on, and family members are calling for an inquest into the men's deaths. In a moment, we'll be speaking to our very own Wales at 6 presenter John Hill, who was one of the first reporters on the scene. But first, let's hear from Lynette Powell, the widow of one of the men who died in the disaster, about her memories of the day.
I just can't believe it. It's 10 years. It's like yesterday. You can't believe it. It's like yesterday it happened. I wish he was here now, you know. I wish he was here all the time because he was family orientated. All my children, we'd get together every weekend. He'd make that weekend for us, you know.
David was the life and soul of it. If you were on a down day and you met David, he'd have you laughing within seconds.
It was like, as I was pegging out, I can know exactly when I woke up the night before, what we had for dinner the night before. We told him not to go to work because his mother had cancer, but he insisted to go back to work. And 9:25, I saw the helicopters come down and I knew there was something wrong. I had a phone call off my son to say he was trapped in the mine. And it all went from there.
They're just in rush of water, which personally they didn't have much of a chance, to be honest with you. Some hours later, then they found the first body, which was on the boat end, and all four of them were there. You know, it was a hell of a shock.
Oh, it was numb. It's like as if I couldn't see anybody. I remember sitting on the sofa, and everybody coming towards me, and I can't remember anything.
You still didn't sense how big it was going to go. Then you started realising about people from America and Chile all over, and it was on the news. And then, of course, all over the world, the donations are coming in. 10 years, unbelievable.
You know, because it's the 10-year anniversary, they're not forgotten, and they're doing a bench and things that is close to me. But everybody still talks about it, David now. To this day, he's got a story. You know, people say, oh, remember David, this, that and the other. Not sad times, happy times.
Lynette Powell there sharing her memories of her husband David, one of the 4 men who died in the explosion at Gleishen. Well, John joins me now. John, very strange to be asking you the questions, but this is what happens, isn't it? When you are a journalist covering a story like this, you get a 360 intimate view of what happened. Tell us about what happened when events unfolded that day in the newsroom.
Well, I remember it was a very quiet day in the newsroom, and then these calls started to come in saying that men were trapped underground. And it was quite puzzling at first because we thought, well, we didn't think we had any mines that were operating. And then the reports started to become clearer and we realised there was a major incident happening. So we obviously deployed satellite trucks, and journalists and reporters and myself got on the road to get down there. And this wasn't a mine as you would perhaps imagine them with big winding gear. This was a little mine just cut into the side of a hillside with men not operating conveyor belts with computers and pressing buttons. This was miners lying on their side, cutting coal in just 4-foot seams. So it was like they were doing in the olden days. And in many ways, it was a sort of Victorian disaster happening in the 21st century.
And a huge rescue operation then.
It was. Everybody from fire brigades to ambulance to the police to the mines rescue to cave rescue, all deployed. And they were all so professional, but they were also going that extra mile. Nobody would go home even when they'd sort of finished their shift because they wanted to stay and they wanted to try and obviously rescue the men. And for a long time we thought it would end well.
And you went back on Wednesday for the 10-year anniversary. How are the community coping?
Clearly, it is cut very deep into that community. It is a mining community and people's memories go back a long way. But it was also interesting to see on the playing field where we were broadcasting from, young children playing, children who weren't born when the disaster happened. And they were playing quite happily, unaware probably of the significance of the day. And that's a heartening thing, I suppose. That's part of renewal and communities rebuilding and going forward. But we mustn't forget the impact that this disaster had, really. And it was, I suppose, the closing chapter in the coal industry.
Absolutely. John, thanks so much for joining us. It's time for a quick break now, but there's plenty more to come. We'll find out how one man from the Clean Peninsula used lockdown to develop a hidden artistic talent, and we'll catch up with Paralympic GB silver medalist James Ball after his success on the track in Tokyo. Welcome back. Now, we all know the high street was struggling before the pandemic, and for most, lockdown made things even worse, with many of our favourite stores forced to close their doors. But Llandudno High Street has had a fairy tale turnaround. The seaside resort has seen spending almost double compared to pre-pandemic levels, and it's now topped the list of UK high streets that have bounced back the fastest. Well, our work and economy correspondent Carol Green has been to find out the secret behind the town's success.
If you want to know what's going on in the Queen of Welsh resorts, then a chat over a cup of tea with Brenda and Heather is a good place to start. The women have been running the Habit Tea Rooms on Mostyn Street for 38 years. How is the town faring?
Oh, very
well. Yeah, it's busier than ever. Yeah, I think the town is really picked up this year because of people are holidaying in this country now, I think.
Do you think it's a one-off?
I think it'll gradually go back as people are out to go abroad, but I think you'll get more people perhaps having shorter breaks. Normally at this time of the year it starts to dwindle off, but the last 2 weeks have been busier than ever.
So busy, in fact, research on card payments show Llandudno is bouncing back stronger than anywhere else in the UK. It's partly down to extra trade, but a closer look reveals people are changing how they pay.
We've got probably at least 2/3, haven't we now?
Of card payments, yes. Yeah, in comparison to cash, we take a lot more card now, and because we are busier, obviously, the card payments are higher, aren't they? You know, so.
It's a pattern across the resort.
We quite often attract a slightly more mature audience who are probably more reticent in taking on electronic transfers. Contactless payments have gone up in terms of it's now £50, not £40. And also those very customers who are reticent are now they're the adopters of contactless payments, and they're probably more reticent about going back to coins and notes.
Pass me a knife, please.
But back at the cafe, it's a juggle. Staff shortages, difficulties getting in everyday supplies like tea cakes, who would have thought, and extra costs on the horizon too.
Getting really difficult to get trained chefs, for example, and some businesses have actually had to reduce their hours. Coupled with that, the increase in the employer national insurance contributions, which is in effect a jobs tax, is a worrying picture.
But the shine hasn't tarnished on this partnership after nearly 40 years.
You must get on. Oh, absolutely, always have done, yes always have done.
Yes. We had one row years ago about Brenda being the carrots, and that's the only row we ever had, and we both apologised straight away afterwards.
And then laughed
and
about
it. And that was it, forgot. And I don't think we've ever had a crossword since.
So all over burnt carrots. Burnt carrots, nearly lost my job.
After last year's stop-start season, this bumper summer is the treat this seaside town has been craving.
Time now to take a look at some of the other stories making the headlines this week. Here's Katie Fenton.
An additional £48 million is to be spent on social care across Wales to help the sector cope with ongoing pressures and challenges. The cash from Welsh Government has been welcomed by many, but there are still some concerns from those working in care that by distributing the money through local councils, the funds might not reach those who need it most. MPs have been discussing a proposal to give Merthyr Tydfil city status. The bid is part of a UK-wide competition to commemorate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee next year. Local MP Gerald Jones is backing the campaign and says he feels that the time is right to recognise the area's history. And the Red Arrows paid a visit to Cardiff on the opening of an exhibition remembering Wales's involvement in the Battle of Britain. The display at City Hall pays tribute to the 17 Welsh pilots killed in action during the battle, and also tells of the damage suffered by cities like Swansea during German bombing raids.
Now, take a look at this. This is the artwork of Cian Parry Owen from the Llŷn Peninsula. It's hard to believe he only started drawing when the pandemic began. But after suffering with anxiety during the first lockdown, he decided to take a break from his job. And after a little encouragement from his mum, who is also an artist, he soon turned hours of boredom into a newfound talent. Rob Shelley has been to meet him.
Most of us thought we'd lost a world when lockdown started. Kian here ended up finding his. It was lockdown that really made you pick up the pencils again, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
In spring last year, he was pretty low. He'd had to put a temporary stop to his job in a shop. And then, out of a little despair and a lot of boredom, another life started up.
So I was just like, just bored really, with nothing to do because I just like working. I decided to do drawings of villages. Yeah, it just happened. Just like, I don't know what, there's a stave off my boredom, yeah.
After a while I thought, we've got to do something because this is long days wasted, and decided to get Kian back into his stickman style.
Almost every day, a blank sheet of paper, a pencil and some imagination turned into a little world. This is like the ultimate therapy, but it's the ultimate therapy that you're starting to turn into work.
Yes.
The nicest form of work.
Oh, it's what I like to do, you know.
Now, Kian's autistic, but so they reckon was Leonardo da Vinci, along with many other artists. And whilst Kian didn't invent the helicopter, Leonardo never sketched anywhere on the Llyn Peninsula, so we're counting that as a 1-1 draw.
When I look at something, I just feel like, oh my God, I've got to draw that. Like when I go to a village, I see these buildings and everything else like that. Oh my God, I have to draw that.
1 minute you've got a blank piece of paper that's, you light a fire with it, and the next minute you've got something very, very precious.
Another day, another village.
Yeah, another day, another village.
And all those villages have found their way onto the internet. Now he's getting orders, commissions, and one drawing sold for over £1,000. We, though, set Kian the challenge of drawing one of his other loves. That's Lily and the rest of the chickens, who did seem to be really good artist models. Your hens are posing for you.
Oh, they just like to show off their feathers and stuff like that, They like to be the centre of attention whenever my friends are over.
Maybe this is where Van Gogh went wrong, not enough chickens. Anyway, we're unlocked and Kian's back working at the shop again, but his CV's grown. He's now an artist whose pictures hang on other people's walls. The man who drew a new world for himself in lockdown.
Wonderful pictures. Now, the Paralympic Games in Japan may be over, but the athletes that inspired us all over the summer have become role models and heroes to many. And cyclist James Ball from Ponthier in Gwent is definitely one of them. He won silver along with his partner Lewis Stewart in the men's tandem 1,000-metre time trial in Tokyo. And I'm delighted to say he joins us here on Newsweek Wales today. James, thanks so much for coming on. A huge congratulations from all of us to you. I mean, that medal is amazing. You've got to show it off to us. Let us have a look. What's it like to wear it?
It is pretty special, and it's I've been told many times today and the last 2 weeks that it's very heavy.
It is heavy. You let me have a hold earlier. I can't believe you actually let someone else hold it, but it is heavy and it's beautiful. Yeah. Has it sunk in that you've actually won it?
Well, like I said, we've been back for 2 weeks now, so I've had time to reflect on the whole games and experience and stuff, and yeah, I mean it's pretty crazy really. That was my my main sort of goal was to just get a medal regardless of colour. I just wanted, just for all that hard work, which has been 10 years of work now just for this one medal.
Oh, I'm sure it was worth it though. Take us back to Tokyo and the event. Yeah. How was it? How did it all go for you?
Reasonably well, obviously. I mean, so basically, all the training we've been done past the last, like I said, 5-6 years of cycling now, has kind of all led to this this one moment, really, this minute of my time, really, because thrown to the Paralympic Games in Rio, and that was amazing for experience, which then definitely helped then in Tokyo, because I've seen the village, I've seen the sort of how the media works and everything like that, and it was a great stepping stone then to then perform in Tokyo.
And for viewers who don't know much about the track event, talk us through sort of how it works.
Yeah, so I ride the tandem kilo. It's 1,000 meters on the track. So that's 4 laps, and it's basically the 100 meters, equivalent to the 100 meters in athletics, where it's just full gas from 0 to 1,000 at the fastest time really. And it's seeded in a way, so it's based on world rankings and the previous Paralympic Games. So then it'll just seed then it's from fastest to to the slowest side, really.
And anyone who's watched it knows how fast speed it is and how many crashes there are, and there's no brakes on the bikes either. How do you compete with a visual impairment?
So I ride the tandem, so my pilot's on the front and I'm the stoker on the back. Basically, like it's a very much a partnership. I was very lucky enough to have Lewis Stewart on the front pilot me. We've not been together long, really, like what, 18 months. So yeah, to get like the silver is we couldn't be more happy with that, really, with the training we've done. So the bike we ride is all like custom made. The handlebars are 3D printed. Like it's like very like
high tech.
Yeah, it's very good.
Amazing. What's next for you, do you think?
So we got a possible World Champs coming up in next year now, and then the end goal then is probably Paris. Yeah.
Paris, fingers crossed. Well, I'm sure there's much more to come. Congratulations. Thank you so much for coming in and showing us that medal. Good luck with whatever's next.
Thank you.
And that is all for now. Thank you so much for your company. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks very much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.